Great. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not going to spend too much time because we have some real experts on the program. But just to cover off quickly, as most of you probably know, this is a 6-day program. It's 3 modules spread over 3 months, and you can see the dates on the left side. We're planning to start up September 16th, and as Cindy mentioned, we're hoping that we can do that given upcoming announcements, and we think it's important for this program to be able to run it in person. And then you can see on the right, I mean, it's really, it has a long history, and it's a very comprehensive and dynamic program that Bridget can talk about. And, you know, some of you might be wondering if you're eligible. You know, in looking at the alumni list, and we have over 300 alumni from the program, it's really all different levels of people from all different backgrounds that can work in this. So I don't think there's any, you know, any real person who's underqualified maybe or overqualified. Everybody can work on this type of thing. So the team that will be supporting you as you go through the program. So, you know, Bridget is the lead faculty, Mark Powell, the adjunct, is a guest speaker for part of the session, and adjunct faculty in the business school, and Sarah Davies, who's a program manager and will be your direct contact as you're going through and administratively supporting you on the program. And you'll hear from Bridget and Mark in a couple minutes. And as I mentioned, we have over 300 alumni that have graduated from the program. And today we'll hear some impressive people. Wendy Younes, who's a chief executive of ABLE New Zealand, Naomi Heap, who's education manager in, I'm probably going to say it wrong, Watamati District Health Board. And I talked to her yesterday and learned we're neighbors. I live in Devonport and she's right down the road in Bayswater. So that was exciting. And from Esther Harrop, who's Lieutenant Colonel in the New Zealand Defense Force. But first, why don't we start out, and we'll stop sharing, and we'll be happy to hear from you, Bridget.
Hello, it's good to talk to you. I'm hoping my house will be quiet enough. I've got 3 student sons roaming around, and I've been kicked out of the front room because one of them's watching the Democratic Convention. And I also have 2 dogs, and they find lockdown too quiet. So the minute someone walks past the street, they bark furiously. So in all of that, I'm hoping I get a quiet 10 minutes. I've been associated with the program for over 10 years. I'm too scared to have a look and see how long it actually is, but I do deeply love the program. And I do understand it is actually a unique program. It tries to make things visible about leadership and get people's hands on them and their learning orientated towards them in ways that I don't think any other program does. So I'm going to mention Lainey, who will be my co-facilitator, and myself. And we are really looking forward to beginning this and kicking off. And one of the things we find is that the nature of the program means you work very deeply with people. People make a profound impact on us, and we get to be part of people's leadership lives and often other aspects of their lives, and it's wonderful. So the whole idea of the program is that it shines a light on, I suppose what you'd say is foundational to leadership, which is how you're thinking, how you're understanding yourself, others, your context of work, and leadership itself. And it goes, it's almost like an excavation. It goes right into really core dimensions of all of that, but does so in a way that's really interactive, really dynamic, gives you lots of choices, and offers new strategies. So the word mindset is really, really important here. We argue you can't do anything new until you really have a look at how you're understanding what it is that you want to do, the purpose, the objectives, the aspirations you hold, what matters enough, that you would even want to lead something, and then your own barriers, obstacles. I know I've got plenty, and other people do too. all of that and how that comes into play when you attempt to lead. So it's a lovely look at mindset. It's not kind of only that, because there's lots of practices associated with mindset. So someone once called it one of the most practical courses they'd done, and it's practical in the sense everything we do, we invite you to practice in between the workshops. And that becomes really important because a lot of leadership development fails because it stays in the classroom. It seems really good when you're in the moment, but if you don't take it out into your own context, adapt it to your own style and your activity, then it's just not going anywhere. And so the course is designed that you come for a 2-day intensive. Those are really, really enjoyable. They can be exhausting because so much is covered in them, but you're going to work really intensely and closely with not just me and Lainey, but everyone else in the cohort as well. Then you go out, you go back to your place of leadership context, whether that's work or community or whatever it might be, and you actually try and put it into practice, and you come back. And nothing is ever put into practice in the sense of how it looks in a lecture or how it looks in a presentation or how it looks in a reading. So we talk that through, how you need to adapt, how you find your own way of articulating and relating to the stuff that we do, what you learn as you try and put into practice. So it's got a huge practice dimension. So I always draw a really close line between mindset and practice. They go together, they directly inform each other, and it's reciprocal. You learn about your mindset as you try and practice stuff, but you learn about practice by keeping on refining and working in mindset ways about how you understand, how you approach, how you think about leadership. So it's got 3 workshops. The first is identifying the work of leadership. It's really crucial, because we don't assume that we all mean the same thing when we utter the word leadership. We don't assume that, in fact, leadership is one thing. So if you're in different contexts, leadership will have a really, really different look. We know that it gets muddled up with things like management, and it's helpful to kind of pull them apart, at least for a while, even though most contexts they are muddled up. And then we really hone in on the difference that leadership ought to make if it is practice. So I tend to approach it as a really distinctive way of trying to get things done, trying to work with others, and trying to utilize yourself, what you have. And it's really different from how you might manage something and whatever your professional, technical, expert work is. So those 2 days are really, really crucial, because we really go straight, directly, and in depth into the very meaning, the very nature, the significance of this leadership thing. The second workshop is doing the work of leadership, and there's some really lovely stuff in there about, and I'm trying to put into these words that go with it, but essentially how you frame things up in your own mind and for others, how you communicate, how you leave space for others to contribute, how you connect, how you collaborate, how you work through a process that's complex, where you can't possibly know how everything's going to pan out, how you cope with all the uncertainty of all of that. So we sort of, in that second workshop, take you through, in a sense, from beginning to end, how you would approach something you want to lead, and what you would do in the service of that. The third one is sustaining the work of leadership. And we hit the really big leadership topics there. That's stuff like change and culture and strategy, but we don't do it like you might do it at university. We do it from a place of it's you who are actually having to take part in strategic activities, influence and impact your own culture, and of course be part of change. One of the ways we see leadership is that you don't actually have to be the leader, that we are all leadership actors, that we are all part of leadership. That sometimes the most important part of leadership is how someone who's not the prominent figure or positionally at the top of an organization contributes in leadership ways to something. So our assumption is that no matter where you are in the organization or what your role is, that you will be a pivotal and influential leadership player from that place. And that's quite refreshing when you look at things like strategy, which can seem to flow down an organization from the top. We argue actually that strategy goes nowhere unless those people right throughout the organization send messages right back up the chain and adapt and work with it, because strategy is a hands-on activity. We make the same assumption with change, that though there might be a change chart or a policy or an initiative that comes from elsewhere, it's only going to work or not when the people who have to do it really engage with it and take their leadership place with it. So we do all that big stuff in that third workshop. Throughout the 3 workshops, and this partly relates to what Cindy said, that we'd love to do this face-to-face, we use a lot of conversational, what you might call technologies. So we use a lot of different types of group formats. We have you in reflective conversations, strategic conversations. We have you working in small groups and large groups. We do simulation type activities, arts-based activities. We create feedback circles and formats. So really the learning follows a pattern. There'll be some really exciting concepts and presentation material, but then immediately after any of that, there is an activity designed to get you actually using it, you doing something. So that's the way it will work. And the actual doing of those activities means you get the concepts. So it's not just a cognitive head thing. For it to work, you have to experiment out and in a more embodied way of trying to get to grips with this. And so we set up loads of activities, loads of processes, loads of formats for you to really get your hands on these concepts. So the concepts are really provocative. They're really cutting edge. They do come from research. Both myself and Lainey do research extensively in leadership, but the joy of research is actually making it happen in a room full of people and seeing that it works. That's hopefully what we as a university are on about, using knowledge to really enable others to really work hard. During this time, you're going to get to know your group really well. And I'm sure I probably won't say too much about this, because I'm sure the people who've done the program are really going to talk to this. But it's fascinating being in a room where everyone's trying to do leadership, but they're doing it in such different contexts. A lot of it resonates. So you may be working in a bank and you find out the exact same challenge as in the military or in education or in health. And that's always the case. But you get an insight into how people are struggling and wrestling with how to change and how to create change and how to influence people and how to lead up to sometimes figures in the organization that look really set in their ways and so on. And you get to share that. So the peer-to-peer interaction is just a gorgeous part of this, because you are developing your leadership alongside others and you're sharing every step of the way. And that's again, the joy of being face-to-face and live. So I have a feeling that I might be talking too long, and I actually am quite careful to watch time. So it's important now to pass on over back to Dave, but any questions you have, I'm really happy to take. So Dave, back to you.
Great. Thanks, Bridget. That was great. And your time is pretty good, so that's fine. So great. I'd like to now throw it over to Mark Powell, who is an adjunct faculty with the business school, but he's a former executive CEO of the Warehouse among other things, and is on several boards. And it would be great to hear from you, Mark. I know you've been on the program for a number of years as a guest lecturer and involved with the design and development. So maybe you could speak to your experience and in particular why you think people go, people in executives and people in businesses would go through this and what they may gain from it to help their careers.
Dave, hopefully I'm coming through clearly. Give me a thumbs up if I am. All good.
Yep.
All good. Yeah, I just want to give a bit of perspective on the program. I've probably been involved in the program, not in every one, but a number of the courses over the last 4 years. And it's been great working with Bridget. The reason I think this program is really important is for you, but also it's helped me reflect on my own career. I started out in operational management, well, not even management, frontline supervision in underground coal mining. And in my career, I've gone from those operational supervisory frontline roles into more functional middle manager, through to a functional leader, through to a general manager type roles, and eventually a CEO. And then now I'm on boards of large companies. And the transition at each stage is actually quite significant, particularly the transition from being a functional executive or a functional manager to firstly being a CEO. And then actually the transition from being a CEO to being on the board of a company. I was the CEO of the Warehouse Group, as Dave mentioned. I was CEO of Warehouse Stationery before that. Now I'm on the board of an NZX listed a company called Kiwi Property Group, and two ASX listed companies, JB Hi-Fi and a company called Bapcor, which you won't have heard of, but you've probably used some of their products. They're an automotive parts distribution company. They're large companies. I'm also on the board of a private dairy kiwi fruit business. The key thing I think this course does is help you on that transition on a journey of each of those key stages, from being a functional expert or middle manager in a particular function, through to GM, through to CEO, and even onto a board as well. Because the big transitions in the I was going to say mindset, and I wasn't just picking that up. They just was the word that came to my mind. To your mindset, when you're, for most of your career, often you're operating in your expertise, and that's comfortable and it's good. We've all got a functional background where we use our expert knowledge, and that knowledge can make you feel very competent. But as you make transitions into leadership, really, you're actually working outside of your area of expertise. And so you're working in areas where you don't know as much as people working for you and as much as everybody else. I think also when you're a functional manager, you can often forget that the perspective of your boss, of the CEO, and even if you're a CEO, the perspective of the board can be very different to yours. And so that mindset transformation to me is stepping out of the expertise, and real confident knowledge, to more broader principles, which, without turning this into a sort of talk on leadership, into more broader principles about the real importance of purpose, the real importance of being clear on priorities, and using them as guides to your decision making, rather than just following processes, following well-tried ways of doing things, following your expertise. And I think this program is a real helpful step to sort of open your eyes, to help you think differently. That will enable you to, I think, perform better in your current roles, but also prepare you perhaps for a future more into leadership. It's interesting, I'm on the remuneration committee for a number of boards, and unfortunately most companies still use a talent grid where they put their people into a 3x3 box, which goes from low, medium to high performance to low, medium to high potential. And everyone wants to be in that high potential, high performance box. And I often, when I was both an executive and on boards, I'll say, actually, there's nothing wrong with being high performance, low potential. It's great having masters in a business, functional masters who are great at what they do. but actually they're not going to become the wider leaders. The difference with the ones who become the wider leaders is they can go beyond their functional expertise and show more broader leadership to be able to lead, focus, align, and empower others in areas where they haven't got the expertise. And to be honest, that's what businesses are looking for, even with what I think is a fairly clumsy and simplistic framework that most businesses still use to do that. They're looking for people who are thinking bigger than their current expertise into the broader purpose and priorities of the organization. And I suppose this program is aimed at helping you do that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. So now I do lots of information sessions over the years, and I think the alumni talks and perspective is always really what people find. Not that you guys weren't very valuable, but the alumni is always great. They have the firsthand perspective. So first, I'd like to ask Esther Harrop, who is, I mistakenly downgraded her. She is a colonel in the New Zealand Defense Force, having been promoted in 2018. And I saw that you were one of the most senior female women. Maybe you now are the most senior female woman, that's double, woman in the New Zealand Defense Force. So really happy to have you on the call. I know you've served in some of the dangerous places in the world, and now you are in what is a very challenging area of Florida. So good luck there. I hope you're surviving. I'm from my mother lives in Florida, so I talked to her, and I know it's a challenging time there. But we spoke yesterday, and I appreciate you sharing your perspective on what you gained from the program, Esther.
Thanks very much, Dave. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, good.
Great. So it's really nice to see so many people interested in leadership development at this tricky time that we find ourselves in the world. Look, my name's Colonel Esther Harrop. I'm a colonel in the New Zealand Army, and I'm not the most senior woman in the New Zealand Defence Force, but there are very few of us, so we have a small number and we're doing our thing. I'm over here posted as a New Zealand Defence Force senior officer to Central Command, so I work with the US military as New Zealand's senior representative in a 44-nation coalition. And most of Central Command's work is in the Middle East. And as you'd imagine, the Middle East is a very busy part of the world for militaries. And I represent New Zealand's interest in that area through the military channel. So that's my job. I've been over here for a couple of years now. I love it. I love Florida, despite the bug that's haunting us right now. It's great weather. Now, I wanted to talk about my experience with the Mindset program. I was a alumni scholarship recipient in 2016. Really grateful to have that opportunity. Somebody from my work recommended. They knew I was an Auckland University ex-student from 20 odd years back, and they recommended that I applied. And I did some research into the program, and the thing that really grabbed me from the start and what really pushed me to apply was that I really wanted to broaden out what was at that stage a 23-year career in the military, where all my leadership training had been provided by the military. And as you can imagine, that's a traditional model, or was for about 15 years of that time, a very traditional leadership model. And you'd know that a lot of leadership theory comes out of the military from way back, and I was wanting something that was a little bit different, and I certainly got that. I turned up on the first session, and I wasn't really sure what to expect, but what I found was a huge group of people, like a really large group, which I found really useful for myself. I think the learning from a broad group of people, a large group from broad backgrounds, both public and private industry, really provided that peer-to-peer, I think you called it, Bridget, learning, and I learned a lot from that cohort as the course progressed. What I found most useful, I think, was the discussion around the work of leadership and the ship in leadership. I think one of the instructors talked about it. So I don't mean a ship like a Navy ship. I mean, you know, the fact that everybody is a leader, everybody has an opportunity to develop their leadership and provide leadership in some way, shape or form, very different to that traditional model that I was used to. So the autocratic leadership style of the person at the top, that was not what I was learning how to be in this course. So, and it wasn't about learning how to be that person, but just learning some tips and tricks, some skills, and a broadening of my mindset, like you say, to help me in my career. Now, when I came back for the second session, which was, as someone mentioned, all about framing, I found that a bit difficult to get my head around. And I guess that's because I'm so indoctrinated in this military training setup. So I found that challenging, and I really enjoyed the space that we were given between the sessions to kind of practice and think, and then have feedback with these people that, even though it's only 3 sessions of 2.5 days each, you do actually become quite close to some of these people, and the sharing and the peer-to-peer learning was of great value to me. I left the last session, actually I came to the last session from my pre-deployment training for South Sudan, and I left the last session and deployed pretty much immediately through Uganda into South Sudan to work in the United Nations mission there. And I did that for 11 months. Now that kind of jump off point from a mixture of military leadership training which was a lot around de-escalation of conflict situations and how to use my pistol for self-defense, coupling that with a 3-day session with these people that have become close cohort with me was invaluable. And I took a lot of the learnings from that last session away with me. And the one that stuck with me, and I still think about it a lot today, is the need for self-awareness. And I think everybody has a need for self-awareness, but I think that when you're in a big group where people are free to help you with your work and help you with your style, if you like, help you with honest feedback about how you come across, I think that being self-aware for me is one of the most important things that you bring to the leadership, the ship in leadership. And that stuck with me, and I used that a lot, particularly in that deployment. I did kind of 5 months as a planner, and I was the boss, and it was kind of traditional stuff. And then I did 5 months as a military advisor to David Shearer, who some of you may know, former Labour Party leader, but a long-term humanitarian, and he was, and still is, the UN's special representative for the Secretary General in the United Nations Mission South Sudan. So he's the boss of the mission. 18,000 people work there to try and save lives, and unfortunately don't have much success. So working alongside him, he didn't love the military, being a humanitarian, and I learned a lot about how I could use my leadership and the mindset, the altered mindset that I'd been given the opportunity to kind of progress his work, and it wasn't my work, it was his work, and so that piece about leading from within the organization alongside the CEO or next to the boss, I think is really, really valuable too. And that's something that in the traditional leadership model, you don't kind of get taught. And that's really all I wanted to say. I'm really happy to take any questions at the end if people have got specific questions about my experience on the program. But I would stress to all of you, if you're kind of on the fence, that, you know, it's definitely worth doing. The investment of your time and time away from work and family to develop your leadership and to develop yourself as a person, I think is something that will stay with you for some time to come. So thanks for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much, Esther. Appreciate your comments, and good luck in the U.S. in Florida. Hope all goes well. Okay, great. So I'd next like to ask Naomi Heap, who graduated from, I was talking to her yesterday, and she was going back through her notes. She completed the program in 2014. I think I have that right. And
No, it's
she,
about 3.5 years ago.
oh, I think I confused you. Sorry, with Wendy,
That's all right.
Wendy was looking at her notes. Yeah. So, and Naomi is my neighbor. I should know that, right? So, yeah, you're my neighbor, and you're an education manager with Waitemata District Health Board. Am I saying that correct?
So the lesson is
Oh my
Waitemata.
gosh! All right. What can I do? All right.
We
If
all
you
have
could
to
talk
learn.
about your experience, thank you
We
so
all
much.
have to learn.
Yes.
Thanks, Dave. I was just going to say a quick hi to Abbas as well, who's on the call. Hi, Abbas. So thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, as Dave says, I am an education manager at Waitemata District Health Board, and that comes off my LinkedIn profile because I've got about 3 or 4 different jobs right now. So I just tried to streamline it and call it education manager. I do quite a lot of work with doctors. So I am responsible for the junior doctor training cohort. I'm responsible as an operations manager for our regional psychiatry training program. My other responsibilities are the education facility at North Shore Hospital. And as of next week, I'll be the acting group manager for our organisational development team. So work's a busy old place at the moment and wearing lots of different hats. But this is such a lovely opportunity to come away from all of that today and to talk to some like-minded people who are passionate about leadership and what that means for each of us within ourselves and how that iterates in our work through to people that we're responsible for and responsible to. When I was thinking about what I was going to say today, I thought in my own kind of education frame, you know, tell people what you're going to talk about it, and then sum up. So I think I'm probably going to tell you where I was at the time when I made the decision to do the leadership mindset course, what my motivation was, really. What I most enjoyed about the course and the big takeaways that have really been instrumental and how that directs my work now. So at the time, I was just finishing my postgrad dip in health science and knew that I was going to go on to a Master of Health Science, which I've since completed. But at the time, I wanted a 6-month break, really to put something back in the tank. My intent was to invest in myself in order that I could invest in others. And academic study is pretty hard out, especially when you're working full time. And so I wanted that 6 months of doing something a bit different, doing a kind of different leadership training. I was thinking about Toastmasters, I was thinking about a number of different things, and leadership mindset came to me because there was an information evening, much as this information session, that some colleagues were attending. And so I didn't know what it was, but I went along out of interest. And was delighted with what I heard about, which seemed to be serendipitous to the moment that I was in, which was about, you know, how do I put something in the tank to be able to give to others. So from there, I remember very clearly getting ready to go to do the course and putting on a nice business outfit, you know, to turn up on the first day, high heels and my bag with all my stationery in, and, you know, showing up to this group of people who were somewhat equally concerned about how they were going to present to the group of strangers, and others were far more relaxed about it. And so it was lovely over the course of those 6 days together how we relaxed and became pretty cohesive unit, actually, in terms of how we interacted with each other. how we shared with each other, how we learnt, you know, that it's not just me. It's not just me on my own with these feelings of, you know, imposter syndrome or whatever else it is that, you know, we carry with us that defines us in our own minds. So, you know, in undertaking the program, the opportunity to reassess how we see ourselves and how we allow ourselves to create space for other people was probably one of the biggest takeaways for me. I've been a manager since I was 24, so that's half my life. I've, you know, been responsible for other people for a long time. But what changed for me through the Leadership Mindset course was how one makes space for other people, how one as a leader enables other people to be successful or to fail or to do whatever it is that they need to do to grow and develop and learn and, you know, have their own confidence. And so Bridget mentioned at the beginning when she gave the rundown, it was lovely to kind of hear those topics again. And, you know, a lot of that content came back to me. But that making space for others was a big takeaway for me. And it's something that I try to implement in my everyday, which is, I see it as enablement. So, you know, to make a space for somebody to thrive, to make a space for somebody to fail, to make a space for somebody to have an idea and to be brave and to be vulnerable or be courageous without judgment, I think is an incredibly important part of leadership, and is the big takeaway for me, and is one of the things that really directs my work now. It makes it incredibly difficult when you're sitting in your office in your house away from everybody else, and we're all getting a bit over Zoom, aren't we? I feel a bit Zoom beat some days with everything that's coming through the computer, but yeah, just trying to still connect with people, still enable people, still be the person who can remove barriers wherever I can to help people to get to where they want to get to be innovative, to be creative, and whether that's financial, whether that's you know, writing business cases, or whether that's just having conversations and having courageous conversations. That work is really important to me. So I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to that, to join you guys today, and to encourage those of you who are considering this program to go ahead, because, you know, no matter what your personal takeaways are, they will be things that you build on, you know, significantly in your career life and in your personal life. And as Esther mentioned as well, the ship in leadership that becomes, you know, the ship that we sail in our leadership. I actually am not opposed to that analogy. You know, it is the, you know, the way that we create an environment for people to be successful. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to that.
Well,
hand back to Dave.
yeah, well, thank you, Naomi. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that and your comments. And I look forward. I bike around that area, so I'll look for you as I'm biking by. So thank you. So I'd like to now turn it over to Wendy Younes, who's the Chief Executive of ABLE New Zealand, and she did graduate from the program in 2014. Am I correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yes,
Thanks, Dave.
great. Yeah, so thank you if you could provide some thoughts on the program and where it's taken you with your career.
Yeah, of course. Thanks very much for the opportunity. So like Dave said, I did the Leadership Mindset program back in 2014, and I came into the program as a scholarship student, which was fantastic to have that support to do the program. And the position I was in at the time was as a brand new chief executive at the ripe old age of 28. And so I came into the program really through, I guess I had come into management through a specialist sort of operations kind of route. And so having just come into that senior leadership role, was really quite focused on hitting business targets, leading my team to hit those targets and hit our budget, and do what we needed to meet all of our targets. But coming into the program, it really kickstarted for me a journey of self-discovery about leadership and about what kind of leader I could be. And I think the design, the beauty of the program is the design of it. So having those 3 sessions spaced out with time in between to really practice what you were learning about really made the learnings hit home for me. So I thought I would just share a few of my kind of takeaways from the program. I guess the first one that I want to share is really that the highlight for me of the program is the discussions and experiences that you have with a really broad range of people in diverse positions. So your cohort will be a broad range of leaders, and hearing from people in other industries that have the same shared challenges as you is really valuable. It gives you an insight to your own leadership challenges that I don't think you can get from anywhere else. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that my problems were not the biggest problems. I was not the only person to have these problems, and that actually most people in leadership have these kinds of issues. And so it really opens your eyes to that that shared experience and also those shared solutions, I think. So yeah, what I also took away from the program is that you know, what I had been focusing on really was management, and actually what leadership is what happens in the heat of the moment. It's what happens when you're in the weeds. It's what happens when you're in crisis. And it's really about who you are as a person. It's about your whole self, your beliefs and your convictions. And I think just resonating with what Esther and Naomi shared is it's about providing that space for others to shine and to lead. And so, you know, I think the discussions and journey we went on over the Leadership Mindset program really brought that home for me. And I think just that recognition of the impact that you as a leader can have on people's lives in both a positive and a negative way, and almost worse in an indifferent way. So I think it just has given me the conviction to lead in a way that I hope has a positive impact on the people around me. And the other thing I wanted to mention is around the network that you can build through the Leadership Mindset program. So I had a fantastic cohort of people on the program in 2014. I'm still in touch with some of them today, and would count a couple of them among my, you know, my leadership circle. And one in particular became a mentor to me, which has had a really profound impact on my own career. And I think before I did the program, I had been seeking a mentor. I just didn't know how to find one. And it's quite challenging to make a connection with someone that you that would want to give up their time for you. But through that shared journey on the Leadership Mindset program, I made some, I guess, natural connections with people that then led to a mentoring type relationship. And since then, I've been able to go on to mentor others. But it's been, you know, that particular relationship has had a really profound impact on my own leadership, and that came directly out of the Leadership Mindset program. Yeah, so look, I would just encourage you, if you're thinking about doing the program, you know, don't hesitate. It's absolutely worth it. The journey of self-reflection is a really important one, and the Leadership Mindset program just facilitates that in a really beautiful and cohesive way. And I think that you will get honest feedback about yourself as a leader that will change the way that you lead. So it's really, really valuable.
Great. Thank you so much, Wendy. Appreciate that. Well, that was great. Thank you to the alumni for sharing and joining this. It was really great insight, and I learned a lot as well. So appreciate that. So what we'll do now is we have about 9 minutes. We can open up to some Q&A discussion. We have a couple questions that have come through on the chat. Feel free to submit on the chat. If you'd like to, if you're brave and you want to do a shout out, fine with that. And we can work it as it goes. So Cindy somebody asked about the size, and that's been answered in the chat. The cost of the program is $5,500, and we can bill that either in a payment to your company prior to the start of the program, or we can spread that out across the program. Any other questions? Any other comments anybody would like to make? Bridget or Mark, Cindy?
Here's a question, Dave, from Joyce asking, what qualities can this program help to make a CEO leader a good CEO leader? That's probably a question for Mark.
Yeah, I think it was referred to, I can't remember whether it was Naomi, I think it was Naomi, who talked about self-awareness. And I think in a group like this, you're going to gain a lot of awareness of yourself and your impact on others. Often in your normal environment, your normal workplace, people get used to you. Kiwis in particular are very polite and conflict averse. And they just might go, oh, well, that's what Mark's like, etc. I think in a group like this, your impact on others can become clear. It's not always your intent. Your self-awareness grows as well. And again, the more senior you get, the less people know you in terms of really knowing you. So all they're left with is your impact. And so that self-awareness is going to be one key thing I think that a good CEO really needs. And a program of that will really help that work. And also in your self-awareness, you're learning about your own biases, and then you start to understand about the biases and tendencies of others. So that all will come through in a program, which is important for a CEO, because a CEO is a position of power. And if you're not aware of your impact, not aware of your self-aware, not aware of others and your own biases, you get left in your own world surrounded by yes people, and that's a very dangerous place to be. And so, that would be one key thing I'd say.
Great. Thanks, Mark. So we also had a question about, so just to tell you, so on our website, we have an application that you can complete. It just gives us some basic information. And if you're interested in joining with the September 16th start, I say we'd probably want to have that wrapped up sometime in early September. So take a look at that if you'd like to join. I know we have a number of people so we had an University of Auckland Alumni Scholarship. We have a number of people that applied for the scholarship on the call. We had closed that scholarship a couple weeks ago, and we will be announcing the winner early next week. So for those of you that are asking about that. Let's see, another question, a lot of positives. Interesting balancing equation. What are the main drawbacks of participation in the program? That's an interesting one. Good question, I guess. I mean, I guess I guess from my perspective, any kind of education I've seen, it's an investment of time and some finances. So you really have to balance that. And look at your schedule, to balance with your family and your work, and people are busy. Certainly there's a lot going on now. So I think you have to be committed to it if you're going to join, and make sure you can make that commitment, because it's with all of these kind of programs, it's what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Here's a question. Have the alumni experienced that this is a good addition to their CVs. Our organization's interested in this. So I guess I would throw that at any of the alumni. Has this been something when you've interviewed for jobs, or when you've, how have you kind of used the qualification of this in addition to maybe just the, you know, the recognition that you've done the program?
Shall I
Go
go
ahead,
first?
Naomi. Sure.
I have it on my CV, that's for sure. And I think that when people look at your CV, they get a whole sense, I certainly do when I look at CVs, get a whole sense of you know, the person on paper, in terms of, you know, the things that you're interested in, the things that you've invested in. For me, I did this course, I self-funded this course. So I was particularly invested in doing it. And as Dave says, the financial and the time side of things are always a commitment when you do any kind of training. But yeah, I think that it adds a flavor to your CV that tells people that you're invested in yourself as a leader, and in being a leader for their organization. I don't know what Esther and Wendy would like to add to that.
Are you, do you have anything? You don't have to add anything if you don't have, okay. Yeah, I think that, so what you'll find with all of these are executive education, you know, it's non-degree, but you'll see a lot of people for our C-suite programs, for our short courses, we'll have those listed on their LinkedIn. And I think that certainly the University of Auckland is a great brand. And I think particularly when you've done, like me, you've done your degree many years ago, it's great to show that you're continually to upgrade yourself. And I think it's things that people ask you about in interviews. You know, what did you gain from that program? In addition, I imagine it helps you a great deal just in interviewing. I mean, and having self-awareness as you're going through the process. The other thing you find in these programs is the expansion of your network, right? So you're coming into whether it's a C-suite or a short course, and you really exponentially expand your network very quickly and meet new people. And these days, that's how people get jobs, right? They find out through other people and through networks. So I think in particular in this time of a lot of transition, these type of programs can be really helpful in that way. Great. Any other questions? We just have two more, maybe one more question if we have anything. Did I miss anything in the chat? No, I always like to end my meetings on time. So we will, I know it's only Zoom, we can keep on going forever and people will drop out, but we should let you go back to your work and your life, your job. Okay, great. Well, I think the time worked very well. First, I'd like to thank our speakers very much, Bridget, Mark. I'd like to particularly thank our alumni for joining and sharing your views and giving back to this. And we've had about 50 people on the call. So, so thank you very much to everyone for taking part. Feel free to reach out to me. You have my email if you have any questions, and I'm sure the alumni would be happy, or I can hook you up with other alumni to have a conversation with as you move along. So thank you very much. And with that, I will wish you a good day. Thank you for joining us today.